evening. Is Dr. Lisa. Hello to all of you. I hope you had a good day. This is Happy Hour with Dr. Lisa. I'm your host. I am Dr. Lisa Liggins Chambers. You can check me out on my personal website, which is Lisa Liggins, Liggins, Chambers, CHAMBERS.com. You can also catch my blog on the Psychology Today website. I write blogs for Psychology Today, and I will continue to do that for as long as they will have me. So, guys, this is my final podcast. I've been posting about that, just letting you all know ahead of time that tonight is the final one. Part of the reason that this is going to be the final podcast is because I have other projects that I'm doing. For example, the two blogs that I'm doing, and I'm a part of a couple of different boards, and I just have a lot going on. That's part of it. The other reason that I am ending the podcast today is because I just don't have any support. And the truth is, to continue podcasts and blogs, you really need to have the kind of support for the content that will eventually lead to assistance from the public. For example, monetizing these things, and I have not asked for any type of monetization for this podcast. I'm always wanting to reach out to people and help people more than I am, to ask for money. But to me, support is more than that. It is getting enough people to follow you, like your podcast, share it, tell other people about it. You know, I will say there are thousands who either listen or read the blogs, but there are far more people who read the blogs. And again, there are two of them. So you will still hear from me. I have both of my blogs. I'm still going to do October ghost stories, which is very popular. I'm going to do that every October. And I have a lot of content to write about. I have over a combined total of 30 years plus of working with kids. So I have a lot to say. I just don't need to sit on the podcast any longer. But I do want to end this podcast with talking about men's mental health because 2 weeks ago I shared that I'd be talking about men's mental health. And although this is the final podcast, I definitely want to still talk about all of the gentlemen, especially you all who have supported me, who are listening right now. Guys, I really do appreciate it. So let's get into question 21. It was, hey, how are you? It was all about what do we need to say to gentlemen to increase their mental health awareness. And this person told me a situation with a personal story with the person within their lives. And so I said, okay, then I'm going to write a whole blog about men's mental health. I have a theory about, men and mental health, and it's my own theory. So it's not empirically proven via research or interventions, but throughout the years, I've noticed that, there are some challenges in mental health that men seem to show differently than women. So, for example, to me, symptoms of sadness, and there have been some other psychologists via research who have discussed this topic as well. Men keep going, they keep dealing with anxiety internally. Sometimes their symptoms of anxiety and depression presents themselves differently because men tend to have that need to take care of other people just like women do. So women aren't the only ones that want to take care of family. Men definitely have that. So they keep going to work. They don't get help. They don't want to be stigmatized. I mean, there's a lot of different reasons why I think the mental health of men is just a little bit different. So I wrote this blog because I want you all to take care of yourselves. You suffer in silence, and you don't have to. And so you aren't alone. There is help, but you have to reach out to people to get the help. So let's kind of talk about men for this last vlog. It is a sign of strength to make sure you go to the doctor and to get help for your mental stability. All right, so the first topic pertaining to men and mental health is suffering in silence. So I am one with the men in my family who watch them. It is so easy for men to default to strength, in particular in my family, as opposed to acknowledging their limitations and their internal challenges. And internal challenges could be symptoms of mental health. So some other men think that, it's better to be strong than to show in their eyes something that is weak. And so there comes resistance and defensiveness. I saw this recently in someone who knew he was sick, yet found a way to deal with it without going to the doctor, which I'm not a fan of that. However, in that person's opinion, it did solve the problem. So typically, there are excuses that some, not all, some men make, such as, no one wants to go to therapy. And who wants to go to therapy? And I don't want to be one of the people who can't deal with something that I think I can control. And so it's difficult, I think, for men to see themselves as not being able to handle everything, including their own mental health. But I wanted to give you all a reality check about that line of thinking. And I went to the CDC and looked up the rates of suicide for men. Okay. And so I want you all to go to that link as well. And if you're ever curious, always go to the CDC. They will post data and you can actually compare data from, recent years in reference to suicide rates, but it's 4 times higher than the rate of females. So while we believe, gentlemen, that we are very strong and that strength allows us to continue to carry on, mental health does get the best of you. My evidence, the statistics on suicide from the CDC. If the percentages do not make sense to you, make sure you reach out to me. You all can still email me, kidscanseeghosts@gmail.com. You can find me on TikTok. You can find me on Facebook. You can find me on YouTube. You can find me on Instagram. All of my handles are the same at Dr. Lisa 3 for all of them. And they are open to the public so you can see them. So you reach out to me if the stats do not make sense to you. But I'm going to share with you some of the thoughts and comments that men have said to me. And this is from teenagers, so males, all the way to the old heads. The men are in their 70s, 80s. Okay. Now, for the young ones, it's more along the lines of, and this is not all, so I'm not making a general reference to all men, okay? This is just the experiences that I've had. I'd rather smoke marijuana than see a doctor. I'm not going to the doctor. Doctors kill you. I'm going to keep going because I don't need therapy. That's for weak people. I know that I have something wrong with me, but I'm not going to get help for it. I hear that a lot about autism. There are some people who realize that they function just a little bit different and they continue to deny those symptoms, or they are fully aware of it and just won't get help for it. Doctors write a prescription, and I'm talking about psychiatrists, write a prescription to treat a mental health ailment, and the response has been, I'm not taking that medication. I'm fine. I've heard some people with more severe conditions say things like, I don't rape women because I drink, and that helps me to stop the thoughts about harming women. I've heard, no, I just yell at everybody else and then I drink and I'm okay. Or who the heck wants to do that? Who wants to go and get a mental health professional? I'm not going to do it. But let me tell you all something. I've been here a long time, 51 years on earth. It's long to me. How about that? And then I've been in the field a long time, and too many men are ending their lives because of the quotes and examples that I just shared with you. However, those type of comments, the rationale, the type of thinking that you all have makes sense to them. It doesn't to me, but it makes sense to them. I even know men who are quick to tell everyone else what to do and how to obtain therapy and how to go see a physician, for example, and when they need to go see a psychiatrist, but will not do it themselves. And these same men say, there's nothing wrong with me. And I'm like, kid, dude, you just said you want to rape women. What do you mean there's nothing wrong with you? You just said your coping mechanism every single time you feel that way is to smoke a joint. You just said every single time you yell or want to do something destructive, you drink to stop it. Trauma. And I've said this many times on this podcast. Trauma is a root to a lot of, the symptoms that we have. And so what they're doing, gentlemen, what you are doing, I'm talking to all of you, you are replacing your symptoms of mental health with unhealthy coping strategies because you're not taking your mental health seriously. I applaud men when I see them going to therapy and psychiatrists and, talking to, people about their feelings. It's really hard, ladies, to get men's, and I'm going to say men, I'm not going to say some men to express themselves. They have a lot of internal thoughts that they just don't tell us. We cannot force them. You all stop forcing men to talk. My thing is, even with the men in my family, if they choose to talk to other people and not even me, that makes me happy. And you got to be okay with that, as long as they're talking to someone. So let's talk about some of the reasons that men may be resistant to getting help for their mental health challenges. Now, a lot of research shows that men are likely to die by suicide more than women. And there could be a variety of factors. Stigma is a huge one. Most men aren't going to go to the bar, with the boys and a football night and or at a table, and say, yeah, I need to go see a psychologist. Typically, more than likely, their friends might tease them if they're immature, right? Because the expectation in society and maybe to their friends is that they should be tough and strong and not show a lot of vulnerability, right? So if they're sitting around, in October watching a football game, and out of the blue, one man says, I have these symptoms of suicide and I think I want to die. What the heck you all think that other men are going to say to them? I think of, what is that show that I was watching? A Million Little Things. I love that show. I'm so mad it went off. It was so well written. I don't want to give it away if you haven't seen it, but I want you to watch it because I think it depicts men's mental health very well. It was executed extremely well. And then one of the scenes, they were at a hockey game. And in the next scene, someone ended their lives and another one had depression. And it was shocking to all of them that this happened. You see what I mean? That's men's mental health. And so some men worry about other things with seeking mental health treatment. So it could be negative consequences at work, could impact their career, their social status, their relationships. And so what we need to do as a society is to make men more comfortable around mental health to help them increase their thoughts about getting help. And we need to be more understanding too, I think personally, about some of the challenges that they go through. So I think if we start to specifically cater to the needs of men, for example, having men's groups, men's health groups, men's workshops, and they get this support that they need, maybe that decrease in suicide rates will decline. And another thing is that men suffer in silence. This is another reason for resistance. And honestly, I don't know why you all do that, because you don't have to. You know, men are more likely to experience anger and irritability as symptoms of depression, whereas women are sad and they feel hopeless. Men are less likely to talk openly about their emotions and their feelings. So it makes it hard for us to recognize when they are struggling. And sometimes it makes it hard for them to recognize because they push it back. And so they don't seek the support that they need. But then, unfortunately, when we lose our men, most people will say, I didn't know he was sick. Think about, some of the celebrities this year and up through last year that actually ended their lives. And they were kind of like, what? Ellen's DJ. I'm sorry, I forget his name. He took his life, and we didn't suspect that he had those kind of internal challenges because all we remember is that he was on Ellen, right? Okay. And so that's what I'm talking about, suffering in silence. And that's actually probably the most hurtful to me, because most families are unaware that the men in their lives are suffering. Ladies, you have to watch them, you know, and take heed to signs. I do it myself when you see it. So you have to encourage them to talk openly about their feelings. Take them seriously. If a man, boy in your life says, I don't want to be here, I'd like to die, you always take suicidal ideation seriously. If you are in a group, gentlemen, with your friends and one of the men is suffering with mental health and says something like that to you, I'm sad, or they seem really angry and they start talking about wanting to pass away, I want you all to take that seriously and give them a safe place to talk. A safe place to talk without judging them and without stigma and without making them fearful to talk. I think that's a part of the problem too. We don't make men feel comfortable enough to talk, but you have to also present to us in a way that we understand that you do need to talk. So if you are a guy who goes to work, comes home, eats, talks a little bit, and then goes to bed, but silently you are suffering, how do we know? How do we know if you all do not tell us? So let's talk about culture and societal expectations of masculinity. That is a part of the problem. We expect men to be strong, and we place that emphasis strictly on masculine traits. So we think of men as being stoic, emotionally self reliant, and that they have a ton of strength. So these expectations that we have of men, actually create a stigma around mental health issues. And seeking help can make men, I'm stumbling over my words, feel as if admitting a problem or talking about their emotions is weak. I mean, I've heard, you know, men say things like, I got this. I'm not weak. I don't need to talk about it. I got this. And it's kind of like, yeah, do you really? Because you look pretty sad. One of the other things that I've seen is for um, tragedy to happen. Tragedy happens, and sometimes they're not even comfortable talking about that tragedy. It is shameful to some to feel that way, to feel sad, to talk about their emotions. They feel, but then what it leads to is isolation, dealing with these things on your own, feeling inadequate if you do seek help for it. So, this is why sometimes it's harder for them to talk openly about their struggles. So we have to create a culture where men feel more comfortable in talking openly about their struggles. We need a more holistic view of masculinity in our society as well. We need to let them know that emotional expression and being vulnerable is okay. It takes a long time, unless a male is raised like that. And I do raise my son to talk about his feelings. And I've told all my kids to make sure that they open themselves up, because holding it in causes so many problems: emotional turmoil, sadness, anxiety. You got to talk to somebody, fellas. Don't be fearful to do that. So let's talk about your fears. We have to address your fears. That's what we need to do. We need to recognize that it's scary for men. Though as stoic as they are very afraid of their feelings, diagnosis, treatment, going to therapy, somebody seeing them in therapy. We want you all to feel a lot more comfortable seeking mental health care. So, some of the things that I've been told that are worries with regard to men seeking mental health is fear of judgment, being judged, walking out of therapy and seeing someone who knows them. Oh man, you gone to therapy? Bingo. They may never go again. The fear of losing control. A lot of people, not just men, feel that way. So let's just kind of talk about fear of losing control for a minute. I just told someone about, I don't know, a week or two ago, who stopped therapy. I said, "Now, why would you stop therapy?" And this person said, I only went to 3 sessions and that was it. I said, "Oh, so by the third session, the therapist was starting to get to you. That's interesting." So some of the emotions were getting ready to start, showing themselves, and it was, I don't know. I just stopped. Yeah. So fear of emotions, I've shared this many times on this podcast, on my blog. I'm not sure why many are afraid to lose control of their emotions. What is wrong with crying? What is wrong with telling someone that you are sad? What is wrong with, I'm sorry, my little puppy just got in here and he licked my leg and it just threw me off. I'm sorry. I didn't expect him underneath my desk. I'm sorry. What is wrong with expressing your emotions? You guys laugh. Laughter is an emotion. You probably just laughed at me because I was thrown off by my dog. Go sit. And that was probably funny too, that I had to make my dog go sit. It's live, right? Things happen. Um, and so when you pile up all of those emotions, right? Well, what happens? Of course, they start coming out. So you get anxiety, you start worrying, you start getting physiological symptoms, you start talking about what we call somatic complaints, because, oh, my head hurts, oh, I can't breathe, oh, my body hurts, don't touch me. All these somatic complaints because you refuse to talk about your feelings because you don't want to lose control. I don't know about you all, but let me tell you, when I want to cry, and I don't. man, I get a massive headache. And I think, I just got to cry so the headache will go away, right? If I'm sad and I won't cry, I get a headache. I don't know how you all do it, holding all those emotions. I can't do it. One of the healthiest things that you can do for yourself is to express your emotions. And when you all go to therapy, don't terminate it after 3 sessions. Allow the person to help you so that you can lose control of your emotion. And let me say this too. Some of you have so much trauma, and a lot of it has been held in for a long time. And this is why you are sad periodically, anxious, angry, confused, disoriented, losing jobs, having interpersonal relationships that do not work out, divorcing. I can name a whole host of things. You have to deal with your challenges. It's not everybody else all of the time. It's not. And a part of this is because you want to be so stoic, gentlemen. You have to lose control to feel better. Some of you are fearful of being diagnosed with a mental health condition. Why? You're worried about how it will impact your career, your personal relationships. Well, how do you know how it will impact you if you refuse to get treatment? I always used to hear something, and I tell you, I think it's true. People used to say, a man who accepts your neuroticism is the one you will marry. That is the one who loves you. And when I was younger, I used to go, what the heck does that mean? Number one, I'm not neurotic. Number two, why would somebody want to accept that about me or any other woman? And three, it's an insult, right? That's what I used to think. As I've gotten older, I realized there's actually some truth to it, right? People use psychiatric terms inappropriately all the time. I mean, there are people that say, oh, she has multiple personality disorder, where the rest of us are going, it's not even called multiple personality disorder any longer. Or, they attribute everything to ADHD when in fact the individuals have autism. So laymen use different terms inappropriately, but those of us in the field interpret what they mean, but we know it's incorrect. Neurotic is one of them. We don't diagnose anybody with neuroticism in the DSM-5, right? But you all say neurotic. But I understand that because not all days are good days. Not all days are bad days. Sometimes you have mediocre days, and ladies, our hormones jump up and down. That's why you guys hear pauses every now and then in me, because sometimes I'm cold. So I go turn my heater on, then I turn it off because I get hot. Then I turn on my fan, and then my fan gets cold. And then I leave everything off, which is why it's silent now. Then I got to go back to turning my heater on. So things happen, So neurotic didn't mean back then that someone was necessarily CRAZY. I don't say that word, but that's what it means, right? But what it means is they accept you for who you are. So there are millions of people diagnosed with a mental health condition and have a wonderful career, healthy relationships, strong, healthy children. That's your reason for not getting help? That doesn't work for me, gentlemen, because it's wrong. It's a false hypothesis. If you have a fear of being diagnosed, you have to work on that because you don't even know if you actually have a condition. And you don't know what your condition is. You might think that you have anxiety when in fact you have bipolar. Or you might think you have schizophrenia when actually you have a form of a personality disorder. Or you might think that you have bereavement when actually you have major depression. You don't know. Or you might not have anything. You just need somebody to talk to. Adjustment. You might need to adjust to a new life or a new job or new career or doggone it, new relationships. But the bottom line is your fear is driving your anxiety. Fear of the unknown. You're not sure what to expect from therapy or other mental health treatment. Sometimes men feel like they won't be able to connect with a therapist or a counselor. I want to talk about that real quick, the counselor or the therapist. I do think that it is a really good idea to shop for therapists or psychologists. I do. I think that you have to have a really good relationship with your therapist or your counselor. I believe that you do have to shop around to make sure you are well matched with that person. I actually get various clients every day when I work, and it works very well because for some reason I think that the majority of them are well matched with me. Although I don't do therapy, all of you know that I'm a tester, I'm a data person. And so there is that worry, even with testing, because a lot of the parents share with me that they feel relieved that it was me, diagnosing their kids, which is, I wear a badge of honor every time my parents tell me that because I appreciate that. But that's what I mean. You have to shop around. There's nothing wrong with that. And if you get into a situation where you found a therapist, but then you think, this person is not well matched with me, it's all right to ask for a referral. You can do that. That works. And they should give you referrals. It's not about us, guys. It's about all of you and getting you the help that you need. So don't worry too much about not connecting. Kind of shop around, see who best fits you, and then go ahead and see that person. Give it a couple of sessions. If it's still not working, ask for referrals and go somewhere else as long as you get the help. Now, if you go through 6, 7 therapists, then it's not the therapist, it's you. It doesn't take 6 or 7 to get the help that you need. They also do not have to match your race or culture to help you. They do not. That's a false perception. You can always ask various questions in line with what they know about your culture, ethnicity, or race to make sure it's a good match. Now, that's different. But think about that. If you have a broken arm and you go to the ER, you don't know who's going to fix your broken arm, put that cast on you, and they can help you despite what they look like. If you do want, if you have a preference about gender, you can find another man. That's easy. There are plenty of men who are psychologists, psychiatrists, and therapists. So make sure, if that is your expectation as you go through this journey, gentlemen, that it matches what you need. If you are uncertain about what to expect from therapy or mental health treatments, ask them. Psychologists will tell you. For example, I don't do therapy. When I did, I was more behavior management, managing those behaviors of kids at schools, at home, teaching strategies. I'm strictly behavioral. Dealing with schools as far as helping the kids behave better at school, getting on my knees when I was younger, not now, when I was younger in schools, tackling fights and tantrums and stuff like that from kids. So when parents would come to me, they would ask me what I would do to help them. And I switched over to testing. And now it's more of a, can you be my parent advocate? Can you, go to an IEP meeting with me? Can you do this? Can you do that? So when they come to me now, they come as knowing that I only test the kids. So they have the expectation that I might do more beyond testing, and I will pretty soon. And I told a few of them that. So you have to ask them, when you meet them, for the first time, to kind of decrease some of your anxiety, well, what are we going to do in treatment? They may say, well, I'm psychoanalysis, I believe in Freud. Young and Adler, right? I practice what they did. Or I'm cognitive behavioral therapist, or for family therapy, I'm structural. I deal with Minuchin, and they'll tell you. But again, for me, when I did therapy, it was more, I'm a Bandura, behaviorist. So I believe in classical conditioning and all that stuff. By the way, that's how I train my dog, through classical conditioning. We go to the bathroom outside, and my cat to scratch on the scratching post. But anyway, I digress. All right, so that's what you guys can do. Access resources. We got to give our guys some resources. When fathers, one of the things that I see, when fathers and mothers come to me for testing, mothers will overtalk the fathers. Mothers will talk for the fathers, and mothers will ask the fathers, do you have any questions? Ladies, cut it out. These guys are sad. Leave these men alone. Now, this is me talking to the ladies. You all know men can speak for themselves, right? We need to give them access to use their own thinking, to talk, and to be a part of sessions, right? It's not fair to them for us to take over. This is why they don't talk. You talk too much. You talk for them. Give them the time and the energy needed so that they can ask questions. When you go to marital therapy or relationship therapy, give them the opportunity to use resources that are available to them to help allow them to use their own words. And see, you guys write me and say, I don't know why he won't talk. Because you talk too much. Be quiet. I always say men will tell you everything you want to know if you just sit there and listen and be quiet. Okay? I know there are barriers. So when you to mental health, so when you all get in, allow men to say what they want to say. It's not easy for us gentlemen to be quiet. Look, I've been talking a straight 40 minutes, so you all know I like to talk. But what I have learned over the years is if we are quiet, men will talk. And a part of the reason why they don't talk is because we don't allow them to. So you all heard me tell the ladies to be quiet. I tell them again, you guys calm down and let men cross that barrier on their own. Now, there are some long wait times for appointments, so keep that in mind. And there is, listen, I gotta address this real quick before I end this podcast today. There is not a shortage of mental health professionals. The media will lead you to believe that we are not out there. We are. There are some problems in my field with this profession in general, lots of them. One of the main problems we have is that we need to stop denying the fact that there are plenty of us. The problem is beyond us. And I'm going to talk about it publicly here sometime this year. The problem is beyond us. There's a shortage because we have a lot of barriers. Speaking of barriers, we have a lot of barriers to cross to start dealing with the public. And so there's not a shortage. There's not a shortage. And I realize the waits are long. So if you need help and you need quick help, always remember, gentlemen, you can go to an emergency room. Remember, you can call any hospital. You can call a suicide hotline. You can talk to your family. You can call your primary care physician. I know the waits are long. I'm actually booked up now through almost August. It's ridiculous. It's because we don't have enough help because of those barriers I just mentioned to you all. So do the best that you can, but if it is urgent, go straight to the ER. You don't have to suffer. We need to, as a society, provide affordable and accessible mental health resources to help our men. We do. I'm going to talk more about that in my blog. So TBA on that one, okay? So what I would like to say on this last blog to the men is that I want you to prioritize your mental health. Ladies, if they tell you no, tell them again why they need to do it. Put your kids in front of them, put their mothers in front of them. If you have to, put their jobs in front of them to make sure we start decreasing these numbers of suicide. There's no need in you all suffering. Not at all. You don't have to. Seeking help is a sign of strength, courage, and everybody has the right to have their mental health needs addressed and supported and to feel better. It's collectively about mental health. We really do need to decrease the stigma and provide more support. Our expectations of men, masculinity has to change too. Regardless of gender, all of us, including me, we can access mental health, get the help that we needed to maintain good health, good mental health. So, gentlemen, I hope that helps. Make sure you keep in contact with me. Again, I'll be on those blogs. Still writing. I have one coming out this Friday. And then I had one last week, and so I'm going to continue to do that. But I have been really concerned about men's mental health lately. So I wrote that blog in April, but I think I'm actually going to release one on Psychology Today at some point about boys and mental health and disabilities. I think I need to talk more to boys, and we got to start talking to little boys too. And because I see patterns now, even with my son's friends, and I'm like, all right, we need to start talking about mental health with boys. They really need to start opening up and talking. So that is my final blog that I'm going to be talking about on this podcast. I know that doesn't make some of you happy, and honestly, I'm a little sad too. Which is why I sound the way that I do. I've really enjoyed the past 2 years, 2 to 3 years, talking on this podcast. But when I close the account, the podcasts are going to shut down as well. Yep. So if you want to keep in contact, make sure that you reach out to me on social media. Make sure you can still call me. I always post my number. I actually have another one now too. So it's 765-280-6407. Make sure you follow me. I still have a ton of content, but I am shutting this podcast down, guys. So thank you so much for supporting me. I really appreciate it. And maybe one day I'll get invited to another podcast. So there'll be even more support from me from another channel. Alrighty, guys, you take care, and I will see you on social media or on my blogs. Keep sending me your questions. I am still going to answer them. Thank you so much. Love you guys. Bye bye.